making the coachee live through the session the kind of stop messages that she got at work. And also the traffic light. Okay, so that was the middle step, and then asking her to pause. So I kind of associated those three things together.
Nice observations. Thank you, Louise.
And I would like to echo as well. Actually, from the very beginning, Ben already, I think he already kind of observed, or the coach already observed what's being said is not quite like what is happening at the moment. But then the coach was nicely laid it out for the client, like step by step, because from there he could already straightly direct the client to think like, look, this is not matching. But he used like the metaphor step by step and slowly like guide the client to think in that way, and like or at least explore in that way. I think that was very impressive, something that definitely a big takeaway for me. And also from what Vincent just said, I also would like to echo about holding space. Now again, a different understanding of, oh, okay, like especially when the client is looping back into the old pattern. I didn't know like you could use pause like this. So it actually helped the client to like really take a step back, like pause, stop looping back into the old habit, like the things that they talked about before. So that was very useful for me, a big takeaway for me as well.
Thank you. I was confused at the beginning too, Diana, and I wasn't really sure how any sort of purpose of the meeting is going to come out of it. And I was also not sure in which direction she's going to move, because I was not sure, is it, you know, because she's thinking too much? Is it because all this? And is it because she's reacting? Is it because? And then what surprised me is the patience to be with the client and to stay with what is in with her. For example, when she said something like, oh, I actually know what I have to do. And Ben spotted, does this mean you actually agree with the feedback? That one for me was such a deep connection, such a great partnership, how you guys call it. And it was really a turning point, because I felt from that moment, the discussion was more around, well, am I taking this feedback or not? Rather than, oh, I want to understand what I need to do to become better. It was more like, yeah, softening in the situation. And I like that. Yeah, it's interesting.
Doing, and
yeah,
and we cannot just talk about it. We need to share the evidence, what we have seen, so that our conversation will be more meaningful and we can understand one another.
okay.
Okay. Since I started first, so I share first. and I need to drop off in a few minutes time. What stood out for me is really, as Ben shared, the way the mind is expanded. It's really looking at the thinking process of the client. And yet, since the client here, maybe the client can verify, I felt that it's done on a very safe, very gentle process. Because sometimes when our thinking are being examined, we tend to feel kind of judged, assessed. It is not comfortable. But I feel that, as Ben explained, it's really unique case study, because we actually expanding our mind by looking at how the client thinks. So I'd like to hear from the client, do you feel any point of time judged, or how do you feel?
I didn't feel negative or judge. So I agree with you. It was done in a gentle way.
Is that really stood out to me was how establishing the coaching agreement, because I do remember at some point there was a bit of a change and also a confirmation saying that from like how she looked at what from questioning the feedback to actually looking at the feedback, accepting it and seeing how to move forward. Another thing I think for the fundamentals was that stood out for me was how the coach kept on trying to help the client to articulate certain things. Like how we say if we can't put it to words, we don't actually know what we know. And I think that was a standout for me, because how she processed and how she was trying to find words was exactly how she was trying to make sense of the whole situation. And actually one of the peer practices we did yesterday, which today I saw again, the biggest insight was, as coaches, we always really highlight how the client is relating to the situation or relating to what they are talking about, the topic, and to put that onto the table and try to like see if there are other perspectives or are there any other ways that they can move forth. And I think that was very clear within this conversation.
And then he brought this the traffic light, the amber light, right? So I think that all that came from the coach, because the level of observation, as the previous discussion that we had, so the power of that observation brought that accuracy when even presenting back to the client. It is such a description, right? Yeah, this is what.
Yeah, the other part. Okay.
Yes,
Okay. I
yes.
understood. Yeah.
The questions of where is the thinking opening up, expanding of the mind. That's where I thought a whole lot of juicy material came out. That's what I was talking about. And those are the ones that I noted. Do you also see it the way I am looking at it? Anything that particularly was striking for you in terms of making the clients
thinking patterns to respond? And then first with the metaphor, and then another powerful moment was then she was describing her life and personal, and then the coach asked her to connect it actually to the feedback story yes she brought. So again, it was coming in the loop that helped the client first to gain this understanding she was looking for, and secondly, really to evaluate it, yeah, to lift this piece of iceberg, yeah. So it was really powerful for me to observe how in every conversation we should really, even if like you feel you can move forward, yeah, we should observe what will serve best our client at this moment.
Client to choose that. So I actually watched, and I could now see the shift from things we've talked about there being active, the client being active, to then shifting to being reflective. For me, that actually seeing that happening was something that really caught my attention. And also the thinking process shift. I actually saw that whole process and things we look for. So when you look for that, you then get to know how to shift the client. So for me, that was very big for me, you know, actually seeing it working in process, the process from what we pick from the class. So yeah, I know I've talked a lot, but I'd encourage you guys to do the applied language of change. It makes a very big difference, especially when you're observing the master do it. Thank you.
So much, everyone. Thank you. Janice, we didn't hear from you, but maybe in the main room you will be able to share. That would be fantastic as well. Yeah, thank you, everyone. we still have, or not we still have few moments, I think, Janice. Oh no.
Whoa! Well, welcome back to the main room, and we're going to answer all your questions. Yay! Okay. So I'm not going to be the only one to answer the question. We have a lot of faculty members, and trust me, they do a better job to answer the question. My way of answering the question sometimes just confuse the students who ask the questions. Okay, but it's good to ask questions. That is great. Great value, because the question you ask shows where your understanding is and what you are wanting to learn more. So, well, we're going to have maybe another 20 minutes here, to get all your questions or clarifications, things that you feel that why is it like that? Why? Okay. So we're going to answer all that for you so that you have a deeper appreciation. So we have Louis, the first to go, and I'm sure Alina and Martina, and I think Melina, Jay, and Azadeh, you will all come in to help me to answer. Go ahead, Louis.
So then I'm, of course, in the learning process, and I'm a bit wondering about this focus, okay? I mean, sometimes you get to the focus in 2 minutes, sometimes it takes 20 minutes, whatever. But once you get to this focus, how do we know as coaches that is a focus that you can really work on, you see? Because, I mean, I don't know how to say it. Sometimes I have a feeling that it could be a focus, something that maybe the client, you kind of come up with, but it's not something that can be handled in a session, in 30 minutes, in a coaching session. I mean, it's not that clear and that easy for me to get the client, how you say, navigating the client to a focus that is actually suitable for the coaching session. Thank you.
Thank you, Louis, for that wonderful question. If I recall properly, you are from a mathematics background, isn't it?
Yes, correct.
I think in the language of mathematics, it doesn't have this concept of continuum, where things are in constant movement and there is no definite point. It only have a definite point in that moment, but we know that moment doesn't seem to last, because once I think about that moment has gone.
It's very interesting what you're saying. The relationship between a mathematical mind and coaching. Thank you for raising that, because it's true. We see everything in formulas and right. And like, for example, I can't understand economy and finance because it's too much of flowing everything. And so you're kind of making me understand that maybe coaching is a bit more similar to finance than to maths, actually. Okay.
So a better, I'm sure Alina and the rest of faculty members will add into their own practical experience how they navigate through. But for me, conceptually, for me, everything has to be, for me, conceptual understanding is the key to master anything, right? We need to know how the engine works. And as part of understanding how the engine works, we need to study the nature of things. So today we're talking about the nature of a focus. What is the nature of focus like in its original form, which is basically evolving? There is nothing definite about a focus. It's meant to serve the coach as a navigation guide, right? It's like a North Star that points you towards a certain direction, but it's not telling you that this is the destination.
Okay, but then when you get to the end,
that's called that's where things evolve. So that's why in mathematics, in the language of mathematics, there's not okay. from a science perspective, we have a language called evolutions or evolve. That means things is no longer the same as time passes. Right. So that's where a focus that serves as a directions arriving at the end point of the conversation becomes an outcome. An outcome points us back to where the focus is, which sometimes is not where the original, sometimes that focus is just a starting point, but that's not the focus at the onset of the conversation. So a focus itself becomes very complex because sometimes it exists as a starting point that brings us to the next destination. That's where the actual journey begins. But that journey actually returns back to itself as a final destination, or it brings the point to another new point over there, right? So it's not necessarily seen as a linear graph from A to B in that perspective, because a focus is purely an intention. And we know, just as we go shopping, we just can't stop the appetite of, wow, this is beautiful. Oh, that's even more beautiful. So we end up getting more than we actually originally wanted. The more we visit, the more we shop around, the more we begin to realize, oh, I think I need that. Oh, I think I need that. Or this is better than that. I think I need that to complement that. So things started to add on as the base begins to, as the mind begins to expand. The understanding of that intention then opens up to a lot more dimension to hold, right? It can be an intention, a focus that sets off as an intention where I want to explore further, and then it can evolve into, I want to get to that final point B, then it can get along to, I think it's not about the final point B, I think it's about me trying to figure out something along the way, right? So it kind of like has a lot of, it evolve as a coach expand the mind, and as the process move forward, and as the client's learning gets deepened. So the best way for me is to understand that as a start of any conversation, we need to have a starting point that points us to point B. Then I hold that tentatively and use that as a North Star to guide the process or the direction of where the conversation needs to explore further. Okay, and then constantly check back and say, hey, are we still in that same direction as to what you want? Or you may just want to revisit again and say, okay, based on what you say in the beginning, is that still the same right now? Do we need to redefine anything about that specific focus?
Can I still say something? I don't want to take away the space of other people, but it seems like I'm thinking, sorry, we're thinking about metaphors, Google Maps, of course, we are talking, and it's like a Google Maps where you can have a lot of unforeseen events, but still it takes you to destination, right? Can we say it that way? So you don't go...
Unfortunately, no. Even the final destination on a Google Map has flaw because it predicts or it presupposes that the final destination is known.
So it's not a good example. Okay.
I'm so sorry. I'm just using an analytical mind to look at your mathematical formula to say that the formula doesn't add up. Something is not well balanced.
Thank you.
Maybe I will just invite Alina and Martina, Diana and Azadeh to chip in terms of their own experience working with the focus of the conversation. That's why I've got more variety and learning. Anyone from our faculty members would like to chip in a couple of your own insight and experience?
Yep, may I go?
Go ahead,
so
Alina.
Louise, that's a good question. That's a question that often comes to our mind too when we are talking to our clients, thinking that, should I accept this as what the client wants to explore, or can we go deeper? So let's look at it like a multi-layered cake. There's the creamy layer, then there's the bready layer, then there's one more cream, and then there is this biscotti, and then there's cream at the bottom, layers and layers and layers. And thought is in these layers. And the way we teach our students also is that the first thought that gets given is in a reactive state. That's the top creamy layer. And we have all learned that we kind of, and don't mind my words, but we kind of reject that layer, saying, no, client, you haven't thought about it. Yes, sure, we regard what you're saying, but let's take this as input, remove the screen, and then go deeper and say, okay, now there's work here. Then we ask one or two mind expanding questions here, and then we listen. When we listen, we understand that there is more to the story in the language and the way they are presenting, the way they are reflecting. And something in the intuition of the coach says, this also is not the layer. There seems to be more. Who is she? Who does she want to be? Is there a value that is popping up? Then we choose to go to third layer. Or sometimes we ask a mind expanding question and the layer remains the same. The same thing comes out. The client is saying the same thing in different words. So we say, okay, today and this time, maybe my client wants to stay at layer 2 or layer 3 only. Now is my time for focus. Now that this layer is my focus, now I will start working in this layer to deepen the learning. So that becomes my focus. So it is, like Ben said, something that really is how your client works with you and how you work with your client to be able to explore those deeper insights and thoughts, which is waiting to be discovered. Like we've always said, that wisdom exists in the consciousness. Where does the client capture that wisdom is how you are framing your questions, making them see something that is there, but they're not able to see. And so powerful questions like the one that came up to today, what have you come to terms with, was like a saying, look there, don't just be in a hurry to say, I got it. Our client today was in a mode where, I got it, I solved the problem. What did you solve? What was the problem first? And what did you discover? Is where you saw our coach gently push. It was like the coach was not ready to let go while the client kept saying, I got it, I'm ready to go, I got my insight, bye-bye. But our coach continued, so what have you agreed? What did you like? Really? And what I'm thinking as you say this, that layer kept getting kind of revisited. And you don't know what you know till you talk about it. And the talking helped the client to make sense. So for me, like I was talking in my breakout room also, if I talk at level 1, core level, then that 4th checkpoint is where I saw our coach spend a lot of time. Of course, the other checkpoints happen, but because a lot of the things the client was talking when those questions were asked, till then she seemed to be in a bit of a hurry, racing mind. So 2 things I've answered, Louise. One is this continuously moving target of our focus. And the second is, where do you see your client and how do you work with the client to make the most of where she is what I saw our coach do today.
So Alina, we have to have a sweet tooth and eat the whole cake. I mean, this is the message, right?
We need to go right to the bottom, cut it like this, and then enjoy it. You leave some of it to her also. The penny drops after 2-3 days with the client also, right? So that's the best part of coaching.
Thank you. So one of the things that I reflected back, I think a lot of coaches get very confused, partly because of the way we talk about what we are trying to do here, which is focus or outcome or coaching agreement, or that's at least right now a different version, or 3 different versions of talking about the same thing. Good. So it's the language itself that confuses the coach. Now, an outcome can be a focus of the conversation. Let me just say it very carefully. An outcome can be a focus of the conversation. Like, what do you want to take away by the end of the day? I want to walk away with an understanding. So an outcome can be a focus. However, a focus is not necessary an outcome. Good. So an outcome has a defined destination. And sometimes our clients is only capable of giving us an outcome, right? So because who gives the outcome, who set the agreement, not the coach, it's the client. And the client is not a coach. Or even if the client is a coach trained, when the coach trained clients being coached, it loses his coach capacity and behave like a client, right? So the clients determines what sort of outcome or focus of the conversation. And it really depends on how much understanding and awareness the client has around the way he's interacting with whatever he's interacting that he's talking about, right? So, and clients may give an outcome as a focus for the conversations. I want to have an understanding by the end of today's conversation. I want to be able to figure out something to do about the situation by the end of today's conversation. That's great. But an outcome of that conversation can be a focus in which we can work on. But I want to have an understanding as a focus is too presumptive. Right? Because we know that as the mind is being expanded, there might be new understanding. Or as the mind begin to process what the client is relating to the situation, that may bring in a new dimension to what the client is thinking as a focus or an outcome at the initial stage. So far so good. So a focus is a much more bigger concept to say that, look, I'm right now looking at this thing that the client is wanting to talk about. And as I begin to expand around it, it seems that there's new things that is opening up. And my job as a coach now is, hey, these two new things that is emerging right now in your conversation seems to have some bearing on your outcome. Can I just check in with you? How is that bringing you to this outcome? Or it has nothing to do with that, right? So through the explorations around what people is expressing, we get to see more colors into the conversations. Is that useful for you so far, Louis?
Better, thank you.
Good, huh?
Yes, no, better. It's not so, I mean, I think it's quite, from my point of view, it's also the experience, okay? Because today I had an experience on this. This is why I'm asking.
True,
and I think, yeah, and I think, thank you, through experience, I think I will get a better feeling about it. Thank you.
Done. So that's the value of this life coaching demonstration, to show students an experience that they may not have. Now you actually add that to your own language to say, hey, there is this dimension here in the coaching conversation when clients seem to be clear but not clear, and that's not to be whole as a very defined outcome, but as a tentative focus as the conversations unfold and expanded. Cool? Well done. And experiment that with your own clients and see how it lands. Okay, so we have one good questions out of the way now. Any other questions that you might of interest to you? I said Vivian. Vivian, do you raise your hand? Oh no, I saw a hand up. I'm seeing things. Okay. Oh, great, Christina! Yay. Christina, are you still in Thailand or you have moved to somewhere else?
I'm still in Thailand.
Oh, great. See, you must remember where your students.
But I am going to move back, so you'll have to remember a new place.
Okay, I'll try to remember the new place. Go, okay, Christina.
Thank you. So my question was, at the point when in this case study, when you said, I observed that there's been this big shift, you were questioning and now you're appreciating, and you asked, can you share with me what has made that shift?
Yeah.
Is that triple loop?
No, I don't think so. I don't think that's a triple loop. That is more on what does it mean to you. So it's more on the second loop.
Can you explain a bit more about that, please?
Okay, so in the process, okay, so I'm talking about two separate things simultaneously. So I'm talking about a concept called the triple loop. So it's whether is this a content, what does it mean for you? And if this is what it means to you, what does it mean in terms of the big picture that you're looking at? Coupled together with the second thing, which is basically the coaching process itself. In the coaching process, what we are interested is when shift happens for the client, right? So when a shift happens, it means that fundamentally there's something happens to the frame of reference. It gets adjusted, it gets calibrated or whatever that is. So that is important for us to notice a shift and then inquire about the shift itself. Because by looking at the change in the reference point or frame of reference, we gain an understanding of what constitutes the frame itself. And it's by understanding right now what the new frame is, then we can make it more sustainable rather than say, yeah, I finally get the outcome. I'm already appreciating it and go, okay? So now we're combining the two things together. The process of noticing versus what is the kind of a learning system that is, okay, let me just say that again. So we're going to talk about noticing the shift and simultaneously looking at the kind of learning capacity that's happening for the client when the clients try to notice about the shift. Okay, good. From a client perspective, okay, this is how it sounds like to the client's mind. I notice a shift from questioning to appreciating. The client look at the content and say, yes, I agreed. That is first loop. Because the client is looking at the content itself and say whether is it true or false, right? So that happens at the first loop. What is the content? Okay, so remember, I'm talking about how the client's mind is responding. There's a shift. Yes, so it's first look because I'm looking at what is the content in order for me to say yes. Then what causes a shift then will trigger the client's mind to step out. I see that there is a shift. Now let me explain to you how the shift happened. So here is second loop. Are you able to follow the chain of thought? Then how is this understanding modifying the early reference point? Then that's the third loop. Because we check back again and say, how does this inform you about the response or something like that, right? So when that inquiry was inserted, so that's where the clients now had to take one more step back and use what the client is able to understand as what makes a shift, gain that understanding, and use that understanding to compare that with another reference point. So when the clients do that by saying, yeah, this is my understanding, how is that informing me about the way I'm responding or the way that speaks about who I am, then that's where the client's mind is activating at the third loop capacity. Henceforth, the impact to the change process itself will be much, much richer because the client is using a third loop capacity. Now, again, as you can see, you will not be able to arrive at third loop thinking capacity if you don't have first loop and second loop in the process itself. So it's kind of like a springboard or a building upon. This is a first loop. And then this is the first loop content that is generated. This is my response, my understanding, my explanation. Then the third loop is how does that connect it to some other reference point, Now, if you revisit the advanced level training, which I believe most of you have already done it, we taught you the interconnectedness. So what happens in the learning of the advanced level is that because it's relatively a heavy content, so students just conveniently memorize, okay, I need to connect two things and ask what's the relationship, how is it connected and not connected. So as long as I find two things, boy and girl, are you related? Great, marker man. Right. So now that you understand that to connect it powerfully, or for people to talk about it, talk about the relationship powerfully, there is some prerequisite. And the prerequisite is the two things that you're comparing has to be one from the second loop and one that is outside whatever that you're trying to inquire. So if you kind of like use the understanding and mash it back to the coaching agreement or mash it back to something that the clients has said somewhere else and ask the clients to consider how is things connected in that scheme, then you generally get a loop thinking using connections. Now, if you connect two things at the second loop level, this understanding and this understanding, how are they connected? You're still in the second loop thinking, but downgrade to first loop. Because you're looking at the content itself and talk about the two content in the second loop. Like, I'm very happy and excited. Oh, what's the connection between happy and excited? You force my second loop learning down to first loop. Now, I'm excited because you guys show up in the, you guys attended the live coaching session. How is you being excited and people showing up in the live coaching session connected? Again, you force me backward down to justify something that has already happened. So it doesn't encourage the loop. So the point of reference of the third, the point of reference for the second object of comparison has to be somewhere outside the content of the first loop and second loop in order to create a meaningful co-relationship. Does that make sense for you, Christina? That you get the glimpse into the inside world?
Yeah, I actually think I understood quite a bit of that.
That's the best version of me trying to make it very simple.
There was a point when I thought, I don't think I, and then suddenly, yeah, I think I understand in this case, but in the next case study, I'll probably ask the same question again.
Well, then keep on asking questions. It's so funny. Okay. Any faculty members, if you would like to contribute in terms of these questions, if not, we're going to invite the students, one more last students to share. And then any last one, any students would like to raise any final questions that you'd like to deepen your understanding for today's case study? If not, we're going to invite maybe just a few of the faculty members to give us a big overview learning of what today's session is about. That? No, that? Great. Any faculty members would like to have the honor to kind of like, give us some salient pointers as to what today's learning is all about? Anyone ready to offer that? Or any of our faculty members who just want to chip in some big idea learning for our students who kind of like walk away with more, yeah, okay, I learned something. There's a silent here, which means what? I'm not sure how to interpret the silence.
Then maybe I'll share.
Oh, go ahead, Andrea, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think like we did discuss this in our breakout also. So something that really stood out in the conversation today was the whole exploration that happened in the emerging understanding of the client and how the coach and the client had this partnership where the coach paused when the client kind of was slipping into the doing mode and the coach very consciously held that space for the client to really start sharing what the client's understanding was. So I think that whole heightening awareness and how we deepen the learning for the client where they become resourceful to be able to handle this situation whenever it pops up in their life. So it's not really about solving an issue or like really trying to fix a problem, but it's about enabling the learning so that the client really walks out as a new person. And I think that's where the third loop learning also comes into play, where you kind of realign some of the ways you're looking at things. And yeah, I think it's like a new birth for me. And I really enjoyed that piece. So that's what I'd like to share. Thanks, Ben.
Wow, thank you, everybody. Let's give everybody a high five. Whoa! Well, we have lots more live coaching sessions that is up and coming. Okay, so every coaching conversation is not the same. Tune in. The more you see, the more you actually get to see the process at work. Now, remember, conceptual understanding is the key towards gaining mastery. Not memorizing a whole lot of stuff. It doesn't work. Now, through such discussion like this, it challenges your mind to be less analytical and logical. Agreed? Okay, good, well done. And don't forget, in the month of March, we got an awesome event that's coming up. What is it? 8th of March. What event is that? Oops, 8th of March. Okay, the friends in Asia doesn't seem to understand 8th of March. 8th of March is 8th of March.
Women's Day in Italy.
Yeah, it's a big thing, right? In Europe, just things are going to pick up in Asia around 8th of March. So we're going to have our first women coaching conference. Yeah. So we want to talk about women inspiring positive change. Yeah. Not just in the professional field, not just in building your coaching practice. It's all about how women is inspiring positive change. If you're a homemaker, you're a mom taking care of kids, that is also a platform in which you are inspiring positive. So we want to invite ladies, come in to share and to talk about how they are, in their whatever sphere they are, as a mom, as a daughter, as a business lady, or as a workers, as a leaders, in whatever capacity. We want you to hear their story, how they are inspiring positive change. What we want here, of course, we are here to be a coach, but what we want is not a professional coach in the form. What we want is the heart of a professional coach that is compassionate, that is gracious, that is seeing big things in life. So it can be a mom, right? So we want to see how that embodiment of the coaching approach, is inspiring or making a difference in the life around it. And what we are interested in is not the big things that people are doing. We are interested about the small things, the unsung heroes. So we want to let women with, that capacity to come in and to inspire faith and courage that we are all here in the journey. So we will have, well, guarantee all the presenters are ladies. Okay, so we will have a discussion this week to see whether gentlemen is allowed to attend the conference. Okay, if not, otherwise we're happy, that the ladies will take it off and you will have a great fun, coming together where you can share, encourage, and inspire one another. Isn't that exciting? So watch out for the month of March, and also do watch out for the month of February. We're going to introduce something new here called Making It Work, especially for people who are right now building your own coaching practice. And we do understand that this is not an easy task. So we want to be able to be on your side, kind of share our experience, share our mistakes, and also we want to share resources because there's a lot of good stuff out there that you might not be aware of. Okay, so we just want to share all that so that you can take full advantage, and then, like my professor always says, step on my shoulder so that you can go higher. That's what we want. Okay, we want you to step on us so that you can leap forward, and then as you move forward, allow other people to go forward. Can do. So do watch out. There's a lot of good stuff coming up in the month of February and March. And take care, everybody. And with that, bye-bye. Stay cheerful, cheerful, cheerful. Smile. Thank you, our faculty members. Would you like